Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 105 of The Best Games Period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me this week is Naomi Lugo.
Hey.
And we're here to bring you all of the discussion and arguing and agreeing and all kinds of opinions that you have come to know and love on The Best Games Period, the show where we talk about a game, a specific game, every week and discuss whether or not it should be considered one of the best games of all time. And I feel like that's a pretty straightforward way of putting it out there, like what the show's about. Did I do good?
Yeah, you covered the bases.
All right.
Is game good? Is game bad? Done.
I mean, I think generally we stay away from saying whether or not a game is bad. I don't think most of the games we talk about on here, I don't think are bad.
Yeah. We should fix that. We should talk about really horrible games and just be generally negative people. The world needs more of that, especially video games. We all know that.
Oh, for sure. Like, I want my video games to be as terrible as possible. That's why I like The Last of Us.
Ooh.
But, coming out lashing with truth.
Yeah.
How are you doing this week?
I am doing A-okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing B-okay.
Well, it's better than C-okay, I think.
Probably, but who knows?
Not us.
Not us, because neither of us are that okay. That specific level of okay.
Yeah.
But have you been playing anything recently that you want to talk about?
Just more Pokemon, of course.
Yep.
Actually booted up Minecraft the other day on Xbox One.
Yeah.
Because the Xbox finally has the underwater update.
What?
And yeah, so I played like a day's worth in survival. But still, I'm pretty excited with the updates that I've seen. I haven't played Minecraft in a while. I'd say about 6 months. So they've done a lot of really promising looking updates. From being able to choose seeds like with a preview, which is really nice. And a lot of other things in setting up the world. And I mean, when I walked into the world and saw the ocean like at nighttime, it was pretty cool. So I'm really excited to get into that kind of content because I think that's a really good way to get people back into Minecraft, is give them a new area to explore and be able to swim, which is really nice. Instead of just like bobbing up on the water surface, like we used to do.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like a bottle in the ocean.
Yes, which is just so much fun.
I mean, like the Minecraft is one of those games I feel like I can always go back to and just kind of slip back into like an old, well-worn slipper, and it's super comfortable.
Oh, definitely. I think we need to find a term for those kind of games.
Comfort games?
Yeah, something like that.
Comfort food, but for video games?
But they also have that element of just sucking your life away and consuming you. So they're not completely innocent, I don't think. Like games like Skyrim,
Like a parasitic game?
Yeah, kinda.
A comforting parasite?
That's wonderful. Sounds like a punk band name or something. No, that would definitely be emo. That would definitely be an emo band name. Never mind.
Comforting parasite?
Yeah, that's 100% emo.
They never made it very big. Yeah, I have not been playing a whole lot. I finished my Vampire review, and I've just kind of been focusing on Kingdom Hearts, because that's the game we're going to be discussing this week, and I had never played it. But I think before we get into that, you were talking about a Minecraft update?
Yes.
And that made me think, smooth transition,
Aww.
that there's another game that is getting an update. It's actually coming out next week, and it is the Hello Games No Man's Sky Next update, which has a lot of people talking this week.
Well, I mean, No Man's Sky release was very smooth, and people have been absolutely in love with this game from release, if I'm correct, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, it was possibly one of the most hyped launches of a game in this generation, and it 100% lived up to all that hype. and that's the end of the story. And now
there was no lying involved, and the game is perfect. Yeah.
So now here's my thing. I don't know that they necessarily lied about it, or if like it's marketing. So if they bent the truth a little bit, I'm fine with it. But I feel like the way the internet discourse around that game when it came out was going, there was just so much. Like, the expectations were almost like this was the second coming. And, like, there's no game could have possibly lived up to that. And if you looked at what they had shown, like, I didn't think it was going to be what a lot of people ended up thinking it was going to be. Because I think a lot of people thought it was going to be so beyond the scope of an indie... What people were painting it out to be was so beyond the scope of what an indie game team could do that my expectations were like grounded, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you're also a professional within the video game industry, so
True.
You understand those dynamics. I mean, as a consumer watching whatever talk show they were on, I can't remember, they definitely dug that hole for themselves.
The other thing is, I'm not sure how much responsibility the developers had for that as opposed to Sony, because Sony's hype machine was kind of going around that too. And usually in video games, marketing and development are handled by two completely separate like companies. Like, I don't think Hello Games indie developer has a marketing branch. They put that out to their publisher, and their publisher was Sony, and Sony put that out to a different marketing agency, and it got away from them. And so when they went on talk shows, they kind of had to stick to those talking points that had already been marketed, which not an ideal situation.
Yeah.
But obviously people were really upset about it. People tried to sue them quite a bit. I don't think any of those lawsuits actually ended up winning in court, or I'm not even sure if they actually ended up going to court. But one of the things that I think is really neat, and I didn't quite expect given how the launch went, was that Hello Games kind of just put their head back to the grindstone and just have been quietly working on this game for the last, ever since it came out. They've been making these free updates, and those updates have done an awful lot to the game. Like, there's base building now, there's a much more expanded combat variety, there's 30 additional hours of story content in the game, that's quite a bit.
That's a whole new game.
And this next update is adding full-on, fully realized multiplayer. Because there was always that sort of multiplayer aspect to it, but it was one of the biggest sticking points of the game at launch, was that it didn't have this full-on multiplayer that a lot of people were expecting. And they're finally adding that, and that is kind of exciting to me. Because there's already been the core fan community around No Man's Sky has been kind of weird, not in a bad way, but they started projects to basically create a galactic civilization where players would just congregate at these very specific coordinates in the universe, and they did that without even being able to see each other, and they basically coordinated the building of this space hub type creation. And now that's actually going to be supported by a lot more game features, I'm interested to see how this niche fan community and this niche game kind of grow together, because I can see it being almost weirdly Star Warsy, where there's a galactic civilized hub that's because you can basically have space piracy now.
Okay.
And so you'd have these different factions building together, making these communal living spaces, trading together. patrolling for security in their spaceships. And then you'd have people who are pirates or, rival factions that want to come in and raid these settlements. And I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities here that I think will be interesting to play out. But I'm not entirely sure. But No Man's Sky is also saying, or Hello Games, they're also saying that this is going to be the largest update they've ever had. And they've released some pretty sizable updates, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more content along with just the multiplayer update. And it has the potential for really injecting some life into it. And it's all free. All the updates have been free, so...
Which was a very smart move. I
yes.
mean, can you imagine if they had paid updates to this game that caused a riot, basically?
Oh, man.
Man.
I mean, I think a lot of the work that they've been doing has been to really rebuild their reputation after the initial launch of this game, because I think it probably would have been really easy to just cut and run from it and dissolve the company, walk away with, however much money you made off the game sales, and then maybe start another company. But they stuck with it, and they're trying to do the best they can with what they have, which I find to be an interesting story. It's not, maybe it's not like a rags to riches or like a very altruistic story, but it's like, they're doing what they can and what they have to kind of keep their company going and keep their vision alive for what this game was supposed to be, and I respect that, at least.
Yeah. And I mean, I joke to be the devil's advocate, of course, but I think that personally that what happened to the studio was extremely unfortunate and not entirely their fault, like you said. They were an indie studio and they were not prepared for the level of volume that they had. I don't think they really anticipated that. Of course, as a developer and as a team, you believe that your game is going to be this amazing thing, and you want it to be this amazing thing. I mean, no developer sets out to make an awful game unless, they're doing it as a parody or anything like that. So
then you want it to be a good parody.
Yeah, exactly. There's quality there. So I just think that it turned into this legend, and it was pretty much the game that everyone loved to hate because of, I mean, I've actually heard from a lot of people that the game is actually very enjoyable now, and I totally believe that. I myself have never played it, but that's just circumstance.
I would even go so far to say, and you can actually go back and you can listen to, there's a lengthy discussion on No Man's Sky right when it came out on this show, but I would go so far to say that No Man's Sky is not a bad game, even when it came out. Like, without any of the updated content, it is just a very existentialist kind of game that kind of sets out to make you feel small. Like, that's kind of the entire, or at least it was the entire point of the game, and it's a very slow realization that you get after playing it for many hours and kind of going through the story and reaching the end, but it is a point that is constantly made and reinforced as you play. And it's that we're all, for all of our accomplishments and all of the things that we have done, and no matter how far we reach out into the universe, we are ultimately very, 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 very small. And the meaning that we make out of what little reach we have is really the meaning we get. And I think the game doesn't really hold people's hand when it comes to that meaning. And obviously there are some people who aren't really playing games to get that kind of a meaning out of something. And so I think it ended up, it was a niche message, a very artistic message, but not a very populist message that did not resonate with a lot of people. But I think with these subsequent updates, it's doing a lot more to meet the general gaming population.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thunk that existentialism wouldn't reach the average gamer? But yeah. So, before we discuss the game this week, I finally did a poll on time, guys.
Oh my goodness.
I know. You all should be very, very proud of me. And it got a whole 7 votes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, last week we talked about Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Man in general. So, we asked you guys if you thought that Ms. Pac-Man, if it was one of the best games, period, and agreed with Jack over here. And all 7 of you on Twitter said, yep.
That's 100%.
So, that is 100%.
I didn't even vote in that poll.
Uh-huh. I can't remember if I did. I should have been the one. Nope. But, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Be proud of me, everyone.
Yay! I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm everyone right now.
Always.
Oh. All right, so should we just hop right into Kingdom Hearts then?
Heck yes.
All right. So, do you want to start this off? Should
Sure.
I? All right. Take it away.
All right. So, Kingdom Hearts is first and foremost, at least to me, is a game of nostalgia. I mean, obviously you have the melding of the two worlds of Disney, which has incredible staying power, especially for millennials, you know, since we grew up with a lot of those movies. They just seem to affect, I think, millennials especially. But then we also have the Final Fantasy aspect, and it is just a clashing of worlds that everyone needed, I think. So the number one point that I wanted to get across in this podcast was that this game represents the potential of video games in the most idealistic way, I think, for me, in that it was able to explore worlds that were imaginary, that were, you know, stuck in my imagination. And it was playing this game, it was a wonder, you know, to go into Halloween Town and be like, oh my gosh, I'm in the movie. Like, they did what they set out to do in this game, I think. And that's my opening point.
Okay.
Bam.
Ba-bam. Yeah.
Bam.
I mean, I have always been of the opinion that video games and fiction in general, and this plays into maybe a large reason why I really like BioShock Infinite, but it should be for the fantastical and the crazy, the stuff that can't necessarily exist in, you know, the normal world. And it is nice to play like the occasional game that is firmly rooted in reality, but I think that oftentimes human storytelling excels when we kind of just rip away a lot of those more grounded rules, and we just go for, you know, we bat for the fences. We're swinging for the fences, and this is a game where you have like over a dozen different worlds that are varying in tone and appearance and subject matter, and it's kind of all over the place, but that's also, I think, one of its big appeals. And it's, like you said, it is a very surreal game. It doesn't feel like something that should exist, but it does.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we have two very different perspectives here. Like, I played this game, not when it came out, but I think in like 2005 to 2007, so shortly after it came out. And then you played this game just this last week.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it's really been able to keep up its nostalgia and all that. So when I played it first, I remember having the distinct feeling that these worlds really felt like the Disney movies that they represent. And did you feel that way?
Yes, they did. They all felt very small, but they felt big enough, and they had like the important locations from most of these iconic films. So like if you go to Aladdin's world, Agrabah, you're running through the streets, and you wind up at you can see the castle in the background, you can see the desert, and then you eventually go to the Cave of Wonders, and the giant tiger head rising out of the desert to swallow you whole. And it has each of these locations have those defining locations in them, and I think that more than anything else is kind of the most important part, because if you take those out, you're left with some really rather small environments that aren't really that interesting. Yeah, like if you rip the Disneyness out of them and just look at them as like gray levels,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, some of them I think can be boiled down to like 5-6 rooms sometimes.
Yeah, and especially since in the era that this came out, you can definitely like see the walls of the level and all of that.
Oh yeah.
Especially in the Alice in Wonderland one, which I hated, by the way. The
Why?
platforming was miserable for me.
Yeah.
I guess we'll start on a gripe. The controls, they were maddening. Like, and then being introduced, well, at least it was one of the first worlds that we went into that wasn't like the Kingdom Hearts universe kind of world. And it was a platforming one, like that I think was not a great choice, and it was painful for me.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. I think about now is probably when I do my heel turn, as maybe Marcus would say. I do not particularly care for Kingdom Hearts, and that's something I discovered after pouring a bunch of time into the first one, and a lot of it has to do with the gameplay. I don't like platforming in this game at all.
It is awful.
It's terrible, and you combine it with a terrible camera controls, and it becomes excruciating sometimes. Like when everything is working at optimal levels, the gameplay is serviceable. And like that's the best thing I can say about the gameplay. I'm not super interested in it. Like, often felt like I was just mashing the X button to hit enemies, and it was just hitting the X button until they were all dead. And beyond that, I was just not interested in anything that was happening when it came to combat, because often the combat felt like it was just a roadblock, and it was just preventing me from getting to my goal. Like, you eventually realize you don't have to fight 95% of the enemies you come across, and so you're just running through areas while these weird little creatures that are jet black and kind of cartoony looking smack you with magic, or they're I know what they're called. But to give the audience a visual, if you haven't played Kingdom Hearts, they're like weird ant creatures made of darkness.
Yes.
And
oh god.
it was just yeah, I mean, maybe it gets better as you unlock more abilities as you go on, but I would have preferred more I know at the time I think this game was very lauded for having this real-time action-oriented combat system, but I don't think it's aged well. I think it might have aged better if it had stuck to kind of a turn-based menu RPG, a traditional RPG system.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a really strong downfall in the Kingdom Hearts series. I mean, I've only played the first 2 games, so I mean, it could be completely different in the other games, but...
Oh, and to just interject real quick. We're only going to be talking about this first game because I don't know anything about any of the other games. And frankly, I don't care if, like, Birth by Sleep or Resonant Distance tell me what happened at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts. Because, gosh dang it should say in the game. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
No worries. But I think the combat is just not fantastic at all. So I totally agree with you there. It can be okay. Like, I've never been blown away by the combat. I've been blown away by everything else, and that can just be my bias as a fan of Final Fantasy and Disney. But I'll briefly talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 now, just because I was able to actually play it at E3, just so we can get some more context there. I felt like it had the same kind of problem that the first two had. So I feel pretty confident in saying that the controls are just not a priority in these games. It's more about building the worlds, building the characters, and convoluting the story as much as possible. But so when I played at E3, I played two parts. It was the toy box, which was more story based, and then there was a Titan fight, the Titans from Hercules. And so you're battling against this giant monster, right, as Sora, with your, Donald and Goofy, of course. And you're wall running up to get this guy and all that, and you have these buffs, but it was never satisfying. I never felt like I connected my hits to this boss, right? And I don't know if I'm a bad Kingdom Hearts player or if I just expect a little bit more out of my combat, but it's always just kind of a feeling I've had with Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that in the first one, at least. Like, I felt like the weight of my attacks was not accurately felt by a lot of the minor monsters. And I can't quite put my finger on why. I think maybe it's because the only attack that really seemed to phase them was when you finish your 3-hit combo, which is like the only combo you can do really for a lot of the beginning.
Yeah.
So I apologize in advance because I feel like by the end of this podcast, a lot of people are going to hate me.
But it's Disney.
I hate the way that this game opens. I dislike it so much. It opens with like a 5-minute. So I was playing the 1.5 final mix whatever version of this game on the PlayStation 3. I don't know what those changes really entailed. I was just trying to play the game and get a feel for it. But the game opens up with a cutscene that seemed like complete gibberish, and then I'm thrown into a very unfamiliar world where I don't really understand how things work, and also the children in this game have terrible parents that let them ride rowboats to an island that is just not even visible on the horizon. Just throwing that out there. And the game makes you collect random junk for the first, I don't know, depending on how well you know the game. If you know where to find these things, you can probably find them all in like 10 minutes. But if you don't know where the things you need to collect are, you are going to be wandering around and looking for random crap for like an hour. And I was just so done. I was so done with it. So to kind of
great first impression there.
To kind of back up, you're introduced to the character Sora, who has a friend named Riku, and another friend named Kairi. And Riku and Kairi both seem like they're kind of into Riku and Sora both seem like they're kind of into Kairi, who's the lady of the group, and they all kind of hang out on this island with a bunch of other kids who are from the Final Fantasy universe, Final Fantasy X universe, and their big dream is to build a raft and to sail it off into the horizon to discover new worlds. And in order to do that, they need to get a bunch of fruit for the raft, or not fruit, but like food for the raft. And I just have to say, I was infuriated by the fact that I could not pick up coconuts. You have to very specifically pick up green coconuts, but the game doesn't tell you that. And so the only way you figure that out is by hitting these coconut trees. And like every time you hit them, they're dropping more coconuts that you can't pick up until they drop a green one. And it was I was so mad. I cannot describe how upset I was that after wandering the island for such a long time, that the solution was hit the coconut trees more to pick up the right kind of coconut. Oh gosh, that
sounds riveting to me.
And then finally things happen and they get hurled out into like the universe, I guess, where worlds
Don't
are
question it.
Worlds
just
are
let it happen.
Tiny spheres of Disney universes, basically. The cosmology of Kingdom Hearts doesn't make any sense, so don't try and interpret it. Really,
no, don't try to interpret anything within this game. Just enjoy being able to talk to Hercules and sing with Ariel, which is the most cringeworthy part of a game I have ever played. I don't know if you got that far, but the singing part with Ariel, do you remember
cringe.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I got angry. I was like, what is this garbage? Oh, yeah.
So I think a lot of the enjoyment of this game comes from, like you were saying at the very beginning, the nostalgia aspect. Like if you have no nostalgia for, I think definitely more Disney than Final Fantasy. If you don't have any nostalgia for Disney films, or you could care less about The Little Mermaid or A Night Before Christmas, you're not going to get a whole lot out of Kingdom Hearts, I don't think.
And you don't like Japanese style games, because that's a big part of it too. And I just wanted to say that you were talking about the cutscenes briefly. Kingdom Hearts, the series cutscenes are just so painfully long. I think it's the second one. Like, the second one opens with, like, it feels like 5 hours worth of cutscenes. And I think I saw a video that said that there were about 14 hours of cutscenes in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Good gravy.
Like, goodness, that is insane. And that's all to explain this convoluted-ass story that does not make any sense. There was, like, a perfect meme. I don't know if you saw it, Jack. Or it was a video on Twitter. Someone put together just various plot points from the Kingdom Hearts series, and it is a whole bunch of amazing nonsense. We'll retweet it on our Twitter page, but it just sums up how ridiculous the story is. I don't even care anymore. Oh, I guess I never really cared about the story except for when I was first playing it. You know, I was just like, oh, this anime character is trying to find this one because they love them and they disappeared or something, and they're actually heartless, and then yeah. So just go watch that video, and then also if you want to like pee your pants laughing, watch the Smosh Games honest trailer about it. It sums it up so perfectly, because they actually describe the plot of this game pretty well, but again, it sounds like absolute nonsense. So yes.
I think that confession, I got so upset playing through the first hour and a half of this game that I had to go take a nap. I was
an anger nap.
I mean, I wasn't angry. I was so bored by the combat. and that's most of what the intro is all about, is the combat. And it took me about 2 hours to get to a point where I finally went to a Disney themed place, and then I was kind of more engaged, and I was more interested in the things that were going on. I think it helps to think of Kingdom Hearts as like a road trip through Disney.
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
I kind of want... I guess I kind of wanted more interactions between the worlds. I want, like... Because to a certain extent, this is like the Avengers of 2002.
Yeah.
Like, you have all these Disney villains sitting around a table plotting in the dark and talking about how they're going to be so evil. And I wanted the Disney heroes to kind of like be coming together to fight them, and instead they were just kind of like staying in their own worlds for what felt like arbitrary reasons, like because King Mickey said so, and King Mickey isn't even really a character in this game until the very end. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, I think this part is in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I know I keep on jumping back and forth, but it kind of just goes with the whole of the series. But there's a part where Sora, Donald, and Goofy go to the Lion King world, and the story is just so bullshit. Like, Sora just thinks that, like, he turns into a lion, right? Everyone turns into a lion.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks that he should be king. He should be the king of the pride. And it's like, wait, what?
Why?
What's happening?
Why?
And then they're like, they help out Simba on some sort of thing, and then Simba ends up being king, and it's like, Sora feels all butthurt, but then he's like, yeah, I guess this isn't a part of my destiny. I'm like, what?
No kidding, Sherlock. You're not a lion.
Like, first of all, it doesn't even, like, fit with Sora's personality, where he just, like, all of a sudden has this ego where he thinks he needs to be king of really anything. Like, you're looking for your friends, dude. What are you doing? So there's just little plot points like that just kind of make me a little upset. Like,
and another part of it is that because, like, playing into that road trip like mentality of the game is that the situations they find themselves in within each world are only roughly connected by a very thin overarching story, where they need to find the keyhole in each world because Sora has the Keyblade that can open, like, either lock it or unlock it. I was unsure about that. But he needs to find them all to save them. Like, that's it, right?
Yeah. And, like, how effective is a key as a blade in the first place? Like,
I mean, it looks like it has some heft to it, so...
yeah.
You know.
We're, like, just causing lots of bruises, I guess. I don't know. I think...
It's like a giant mace.
Yeah. I think a good way to sum up how this game affects people is, like, when I was playing through Kingdom Hearts, I saw Cloud, and I was like, oh, it's Cloud. That's cool. And at this point, I hadn't played Final Fantasy VII. Like, it didn't even, I didn't really care too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's cool. There's
Yeah.
a Final Fantasy character. He's moody. Okay. I knew who he was, but it didn't really do anything for me. Meanwhile, my partner, when he first played this game, he was a huge Final Fantasy VII fan. And when he saw Cloud in this new form, he lost his shit. Like, he adored that. Because if you think about it, like, we only got to see Cloud in Final Fantasy VII as this polygon character. Like, you had to imagine a lot of what Cloud really would be, right?
Yeah.
So when you see him in this new, I mean, the graphics for that day were great, like, in this new form, like, it triggers something different in nostalgia. Like, it's almost like dreaming, which kind of sounds hippie-ish, but
no,
like,
I understand I think I understand what you're going for. It's like,
yeah, it's part of your subconscious, and it those memories meshing together and coming into reality, I guess. And that's a extremely special feeling that's hard to replicate, you know? So I think that's just a good kind of segment of how this game affects people differently, you know?
Yeah,
like
can I just
oh yeah, go for it.
Put out there, it's like what the best remakes do is taking something you remember and then making it just as good as you remember, if not better.
Yes, exactly. That's why the Final Fantasy remake has such hype behind it, is because people are so excited to see the full potential of that game. Like, we're at a point in video games where we can see a pretty realistic representation of this story, especially since the game, you know, at the time was so I mean, it was beautiful for when it came out, but it left a lot to the imagination. So yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted, but where were you going before that?
Oh, I don't remember. Where
okay.
where was I
derailed
going?
you.
No problem.
Yeah, I think that there are problems. There are. I don't know how well this game holds up if you played it in 2002 and then are going back to it now. That's kind of where I'm at, or if I don't think this game would be noteworthy or fondly remembered at all if you stripped all of the Disney stuff out of it, like, and replaced it with like generic cartoon world and stripped the Final Fantasy out of it and put in Japanese RPG tropes. How it's hard for me to like figure out how much, like, just how much of this game is the nostalgia.
Yeah, how much is it leaning on its characters and the world?
Yeah, because one of the things I try and think about when like talking about best games period and stuff is like, how specific are these games to me, and if that is something that if it's a game that anyone can enjoy regardless of where they're coming from. And with Kingdom Hearts, I'm not sure if, you know, a Gen Z, like a Generation Z person growing up, you know, in 10 years or something, is going to find Kingdom Hearts as notable as people of our generation do right now.
See, I think they will. Just because that nostalgia is so strong, and you see it within Gen Z as well.
Yeah, but isn't it nostalgia for different things?
Yeah, I suppose it's like how we're going back to like Nintendo games now, or NES games rather, with like the Nintendo Minis. Like, there's, I mean, nostalgia is a strong monster, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's you know, maybe you can interpret the Heartless as being nostalgia.
Oh my god.
They're the corporate goons that are, you know, consuming the bright souls and hearts of your childhood and trying to churn them out into cold heartless cash, you know?
All right.
They're capitalism, man.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I get all of that. And still, despite all of the negatives I had about this game, it'll always have that fond spot in my heart, just because it was able to unlock that wonder and that fascination when I played it. Like, that's just how it is. I was definitely a sucker. I was the target audience.
And, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I like enjoying games.
Yeah, like, I'm totally open to the fact that this is not my cup of tea. Like, I generally love RPGs, but this was not my thing, and I might have missed the boat on the ideal time to enjoy this. I feel like if maybe I'd had access to a PlayStation 2 back in 2002 and had played this right when it came out, I would have been as blown away as everyone else. but I feel like and again, maybe this is sometime down the road we can do Kingdom Hearts 2, and maybe that one will kind of grow on me too, because Kingdom Hearts kind of has the benefit of having, Kingdom Hearts 2 and then a bevy of spin-offs and sort of sequels and prequels going on supporting its story. And so it's hard to just like isolate it as a thing.
Yeah.
But maybe, and I don't know, maybe Kingdom Hearts 2 does better with the platforming.
It totally does.
Which would go a long way for me to enjoy it.
Yeah, I liked Kingdom Hearts 2 a lot more than 1, so. But that'll be a discussion for another day.
True that.
Right. Do you have any other points you want to say before I go to Contrarian Corner?
Well, so I'll make a final just laying out my thoughts, and then maybe you can do that, or you can do the same, and then Contrarian Corner. And does that sound good?
That sounds great to me.
All right. So when it comes to Kingdom Hearts, I don't know that the controls necessarily hold up as well as anything else, even in remakes. It seems strange to me that they didn't really do anything about the camera in subsequent iterations on this game. But the camera and the platforming are just rough as heck. And if you're someone who really values deep gameplay mechanics, you're going to be kind of upset about the, muddling through menus as you're trying to fight in real-time combat. Or you're just going to say screw it and you're going to run through all the combat because you'll realize you don't actually need to fight everything. Or most things, really. But then that just leaves you focusing on the lackluster platforming, which is also infuriating, and the actual layouts of some of these areas aren't that great. They really rely on their small size to kind of allow players to just bumble into the right place that they're supposed to be in after wandering. A lot of the story segments don't provide that much direction, so you are just kind of left to wander and figure things out, almost in like super classic RPG fashion. And your tolerance for all of that will be tested, and I think that the payoff, which is being able to see these Disney worlds in ways that you've never seen them before, your mileage is going to vary from those. And so I think for a lot of people in our generation, and a lot of people older than us, and a lot of people a little bit younger than us, these games are gonna age well, and they're gonna be held up as like some of the fondest gaming memories we have. I just think that a lot of that is based on the good feelings we have towards these characters from our own childhoods and growing up with, a VHS copy of Hercules or 101 Dalmatians or, Tarzan or, whatever. Insert Disney property here. And, I think it's totally fine to traffic in nostalgia that way. I don't know.
That made it sound so dirty. What do? Oh, I traffic in nostalgia.
I mean, maybe Disney should be ashamed. Dirty
they did it
nostalgists.
So well,
but
yeah.
but I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to come down on a no, which I feel like makes me like kind of the Scrooge of this podcast, because I'm.
Yep, definitely.
But
you're the Scrooge.
But I have to embrace that role and just lay it out there the way I see it. I don't know that like in the future it's gonna be as widely acclaimed. I will note though that it is interesting how few like professional critical reviews you can find of this game online now. Just because a lot of the outlets that reviewed it when it came out are no longer in operation, and you can't just go to, a lot of the websites that publish the reviews because they're gone. Which is an interesting fact of the trade, I guess. The only major one I could find was GameSpot. So, yeah.
Oh, well, that's depressing.
Yeah. So let this podcast live on as a beacon to all reviewers that come after.
Yes. So, I'm gonna go with a yes. And that is fully accepting that nostalgia had a huge role in that. And this game, because of the time I played it, really set the groundwork for a lot of the elements that I'm looking for in the games I play now. Like, I want that feeling of wonder. It doesn't have to be connected to nostalgia, but that feeling of exploring a world and wanting to just be immersed and see all of it. Like, I think that's something that is extremely special. And just because they used these super popular elements to do that, I don't think that discredits this game. Like, there are a ton of things that could have gone wrong, but they used their vision to make this game what it should have been and what they wanted it to be. And it was really good that Disney kind of gave them the freedom to do that, because they totally could not have, being Disney and all. So I think they did something right. Like, yes, the worlds are weird, the story's bizarre, but the way you feel walking into, like, the Olympus world, like in Hercules, there's just something about it that just clicks for me. And yeah,
I mean,
I think
that's cool.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
Like I said, it's something I want to happen more in games, and I have found in other games that don't rely 100% on that nostalgia. So yeah.
One thing I kind of wish we had been able to spend, I mean, we are able to spend more time on it, but I feel like we're kind of wrapping up, but I don't necessarily know how this game came to exist. And a lot of the information that I tried to find about that was very vague.
Yeah.
From everything that I could see, it was basically that Disney was in a big downswing at the turn of the millennium, and so was Square Enix, which at that point was still just Square. I think Kingdom Hearts was like one of the last games to actually be a Square game when it came out, because when this released, they were just kind of merging with Enix, or Squaresoft, whatever. You know the companies I'm talking about. I'm just very tired and inarticulate at the moment. But so both these companies were kind of on the downswing, and they managed to connect somehow, and the crazy idea of merging them came up, and they just put their pedal to the metal and gunned for it, because what did they have to lose at that point, I guess?
So the story is, and I can't remember exactly who the players are, but someone from Disney and someone from Square had a chance encounter in an elevator because Square and Disney were in the same building. So they just happened to be together and pitch this idea, and it kind of worked. So, and I don't know if you know the whole part of how people at Square were impressed by what Mario 64 could have been, but they were still complaining that only a property as popular as Mario could get away with something like innovative like that, something as risky as that. So they wanted to have a property that was pretty secure and be able to make something ambitious like that. So that's kind of a little bit more story there for you.
Okay. That's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for educating me.
Of course.
Hair flip.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Is it time for Contrarian?
I think it's time for Contrarian Corner. All right. So there's a lot of typos in this first one, so I'm going to try. This one was written on June 20th in 2004 from Courtney L. And she says, I've got one word for and these are all like numerals, and M is written EM. Anyway, I've got one word for hard. I got stuck as soon as I started, not really for a 12-year-old gal like me. That's the review. So, Courtney, your honesty is appreciated. All right, so, and then I have a more lengthy review from Anonymous, and which was written February 8th, 2003. And they say, this game is bad. Anyone who says otherwise definitely knows very little, if anything, about games. First of all, it tries to pass off as an action RPG, but it's more of an action-adventure game with several platform sequences than anything else. To add insult to injury, they're bad platform sequences at that. And they don't even touch the brilliance of a Mario game by a long mile. Then you have the camera, or should I say that you do not have one, because you're pretty much battling blind half the time, while walls and objects block your sight. Gameplay is definitely the worst, as it's a button masher experience all the way. Every 3 steps, enemies show up, which you must defeat if you want access to have simple commands like open. That's right. You may have a neat little chest right next to you, but if there's one single enemy nearby, the game won't allow you to open it. There's more. The AI for your companions is customizable, but that's not saying much. Either they waste all their resources in a couple fights, or fights, or they save them so much that it kills them, leaving you alone to fight whatever enemies are left on the screen. If there is one relatively good thing about Kingdom Hearts, it is the sound. Music is fine, and the voices are top-notch. But no one buys a game for music alone. You have been warned.
You know...
And yeah, we did forget to talk about the music, didn't we?
I kind of agree with a lot of that review.
Well, yeah. There's definitely some points there. But yeah, the music is absolutely amazing in this game.
Would you describe it as simple and clean?
More like, I don't know. I'd need a second to think about the words I'd want for the music. Huh. Anyway, I think it's almost added an element of its own to this game and the story. Like, it has, for lack of a better word, this prettiness to it that makes it just creates the tone, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like the music. I guess I'm trying to say.
All right.
And this is the part of the show where your hosts just slowly deteriorate into puddles.
It happens every week, folks. We try to
Yes.
hide it from you, but this week, not so much.
Me like game. Game good.
With that, you can find us on Twitter at bestgamesperiod, where we post about the show releasing every week and some updates and stuff. So if you want to follow the show, follow us over there. You can also follow us on Patreon and donate $1 every month to keep our lights on and the podcast trucking. If you donate at least $1, you get access to fun little random episodes that we record and put out every so often, just for you guys, our backers. And thank you to everyone who's backed us so far. We really appreciate each and every one of you. And on top of that, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Libsyn, a bunch of other podcasting sites and services across the internet. We are all over the place. We are everywhere. We are watching. And beware of any puddles you step in, because those might be us.
We see you listening right now.
Ooh.
Or watching you. Hey, don't turn it off yet. Listen to this part. Hey. All right, that's what I thought.
And with that, you can also find us on Extra Life. And if you don't know what Extra Life is, it is a wonderful gaming charity where people can play games and raise money for sick and injured kids in hospitals all across the United States and Canada. It's a really fantastic charity. It's part of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. And when you sign up, you can actually choose which hospital you want to donate to, and 100% of everything you raise goes directly to that hospital to help those kids. It's really fantastic. You can learn more or sign up over at extra-life.org. And you can find our podcast on the community side of things, community.extra-life.org, where you can listen to the podcast or just read about cool video game stuff, because we write about game things there too. So get on all that good stuff.
And it is good stuff indeed.
Mm-hmm. And
I will be publishing my take on the Cyberpunk 2077 demo, the 50-minute demo that was at E3 very soon.
Heck
so you don't want to miss that. Like, I go into a lot of detail. I've been working on this thing forever. So
it's a beast.
It is a beast. It really is. But it's a good beast.
It's a tame beast. It's like the monsters from Monsters Inc.
It's an informative beast.
Yeah.
So
an info beast.
Yeah.
And anything else you want to plug?
No, just follow us on Twitter. We always love hearing from you guys. And thank you for listening, of course.
Yeah. With all of that being said, we'll be seeing you next week on the Flippity Dippity.
I see the kingdom in the sky, and the kingdom in your heart. You got the key to reach every dream, see you had it from the start. See you strong enough to beat every challenge, good enough to reach every palace. And with the team you can do anything, I mean everything within everything. Climbing every mountain, swimming every sea. Nobody can ever take your spot, it was made for you because you got a heart. If you got my back, I got yours, and through everything we'll break forward. See us running through every door, are you ready for what's in store? They will say that you'll never be filling you with dark energy. Enemies will eventually turn into a chain of memories. Those memories have a tendency to break every wall. Whether short or tall, that's your destiny. Every step is a path you take to your legacy. Here's the key to your destiny. Open doors like it's sesame. Even those without a heart still has a form of identity. Times might be helpless and talk without a doubt, but what's inside will never die, and you gotta try. Protect your kingdom. Protect your kingdom. Protect your kingdom. Protect your kingdom. Got friends in different places, with many different faces. And the more you meet along the way, is a team of many graces. Whether big or small, you got a king strong. Take down the one that controls them all. Take the fall, no, take my hand, I'll lift you up. I won't give up. Reach the highest mountain, never let them down. Help along the way, help you reach the crown. See, these memories include all of us, and these broken pieces we built the trust, made it strong, made it last, making sure they don't become the past. They will say that you'll never be filling you with dark energy. Enemies will eventually turn into a chain of memories. That power comes from inside you, strong enough to fix anything. So anyone that says otherwise is a nobody, destroyed mentally. Here's the key to your destiny. Open doors like it's sesame. Even those without a heart still has a form of identity. Take the chance, live the dream, make a change, still believe, risk it all, go achieve, and most of all, protect your kingdom. Protect your kingdom. Protect your kingdom. Protect your kingdom.